Howdy, y'all. Joffrey the Giant, gonna talk about education and a tweet. Enjoying some Earl Grey and asking for your forgiveness. That dishwasher sound in the background. It's late in the evening, and my youngest son has only now finished doing the dishes. I ain't gonna let that dishwasher run. So a certain tweet has been making the rounds, and as certain tweets do, being screen capped and shared on other platforms. Robert J. O'Neill, a former Navy SEAL and a former Fox News commentator. I'm not going to go into who he is. He's actually rather a controversial figure. But I encourage you to read up on him, and if this story intrigues you, I'm just going to treat the substance of his tweet. I mention who he is, though, because the tweet concerns raising boys. And so, of course, he's being held out as a paragon of masculinity. And he may well be. He certainly is better at many man things than I. So let that be established. Doesn't make him right, though. So here's the tweet. I'll give you a moment to read it, to digest it, and tell you what really dismays me about this. And it dismays me because it's not just one guy, but rather an enormous section of the American Christian population. Better teach your boy how to be a man before your teachers turn him into a woman. Okay. The level of engagement that American Christians have with state education is absolutely astounding, is irresponsible, and is sinful. And I think that this tweet is a good way to illustrate this. So, what we're talking about here is the behavior of an enemy, right? What O'Neill is talking about. He's basically saying, prepare your kids to prosper as much as they may before the slavers come. Right? Sell him off in a far land. Make sure he knows who he is and who his God is before he is taken away and before the enemy gets hold of him. I mean, isn't that the obvious? Who else would try to turn your boy into a woman? Only an enemy would do that. Why then do we continue sending our children to the enemy? And don't think that what this has to do is Christians versus non-Christians. A lot of you who are watching in Alabama or South Carolina, maybe even Missouri, there are lots of Christians teaching in the public school system, reinforcing that demonic institution. A full education, as opposed to, let's say, a class that train you in carpentry or in spreadsheets, is the formation of humans. The state is interested in forming your humans. And this state particularly wants to break the family and break your children away from the family. Why do we have such radical speech coming out not just from O'Neill, but from you, that is not followed up by radical action? This is the behavior of slavers. This is the behavior of enemies of your people. And you have the power to take your children back. I mean, I pity the Chinese Christians who have to figure stuff out. It's harder for Canadian Christians than it is for you. There are Christian educators of all sorts who have come before, who have been fighting a fight that you've been absent from. Take advantage of the ground they've won and come gain some more with us. Stop preparing your children to go be, I wanted to say it, so I'm going to say it, molested. Stop handing your children over those who wish to break them. And instead, take up the mantle of your education. That right there should be enough for you to stop saying, but homeschooling is so hard, or it would require too much of a lifestyle change. One of us would have to stop working, etc. Listen, that's what's at stake. You can do it. Are your children that important? But the truth is, the aforementioned Christian educators that I've been speaking of, they've set up a culture that you can participate in. It is not as far as thou supposest, really. The number of co-ops, the number of schools with scholarships, the number of community educational options. They are myriad. Work and resources are not an excuse. It's important for you to admit that it was never enough of an excuse. Stop handing your children over. Take responsibility for them. The peace of Christ be upon you.
Aí sim é um homem de verdade, não é esses troços do grupo não, essas carcaças velhas, UOL, fim de carreira.
Cadê você, profeta, autarquia? Hein? Pedrada no inferno, fala comigo aí, matador de demônio. Hein?